All right, we're back with part B of lesson 6, which we're going to actually now start to look at the particulars of child development pillars. So these are, you'll hear me refer to these as the pillars of child development because I think these hold up everything that we know about child development. We can put them basically in these five categories. So physical, including biological, because I'm trying to give you when you look at different research or different writings or different organizations when they write about child development, they'll use slightly different terms, and I tried to catch most of the terms so that when you get to a different document, you're not like, oh, what is that? Is it physical? Is it cognitive? So physical, you might see biological development as well. Cognitive, meaning how are they actually thinking? It may also include language and communication. Emotional, you may also see self-help, self-regulation. Social, you might see includes psychosocial, and moral is usually kind of on its own. It kind of is the moral thing. Okay, so basically, again, why I want you to focus on these child development pillars is that the impact of development, of you knowing about how children are developing, impacts learning and schools. So if you have no idea how children develop, you may not be have a positive impact on learning and on schools, which of course is not what we want. We want you to have a very positive aspect. Sorry, my glasses are reflecting. I'll try to stay somewhere here. Okay, and also the contributions of developmental theorists. This is where we're getting these particular pillars from. And again, we had a little bit of a glimpse into how those theorists came about with their information. Okay, today we are going to focus on physical. And then in lessons 7 and 8, we're going to look at cognitive, and then we'll keep going through the pillars. Okay, so basically, again, just a little overview. What is development? Development is a proficient evolutionary process that occurs across our entire lives. So we are always constantly developing. And I think you as teachers need to have an understanding of why kids are acting and learning and comprehending in the way that they are. So of course, back to those objectives, you can be the best teacher that you can be. So basically, I put this picture here of some junior high kids. Look at a junior high to see if changes are universal and all at the same time. No, these are generalizations. So when I talk about, 0 to 2, this happens, of course, it's going to be some kids that it happens much later. And for some aspects of those developmental stages will happen earlier. So we can see here, here's this young man, quite a bit taller than his colleagues. We've got different phases, different stages. And so it's not a universal, but we try to give child development researchers try to give you some overall ideas of what's happening. So is maturation nature or nurture or both? Is it nature where the child is everything is innate, they're born with it, or is it nurture? Do families influence? Does the environment influence? Does school influence? Or is it a little bit of a mixture of both? And again, I think most of us probably are in that range of where it's a little bit of both. Okay, so again, the importance for you as potential teachers of being knowing developmentally appropriate stages, because if, say for instance, in this classroom, these are like little guys, grade 1s. If you started talking really abstract kinds of concepts here, they're actually they actually cannot understand you because they are not physically ready, or physically or cognitively ready to handle that kind of stuff. So again, you need to be aware as a potential teacher in order to make your classroom the most efficient. Okay. Let's jump into biological development. Let's look a little bit at the brain. So all physical development is genetically predetermined, and except if there is nutritional or medical impairment, but basically your brain will develop, your body will develop based on your genetics. And brain development, brains grow, actually they physically grow, and so does the capacity to learn. So the brain is an amazing, amazing part of the body. It controls everything, everything. So it's so imperative, especially if for those kids to protect their head and their brain and wear helmets when they're supposed to, because the brain gets damaged. It can repair itself a little bit, but brain damage is pretty nasty. I'm just going to give you some interesting stats because I think it's always interesting to hear a few numbers. At birth, the average baby's brain is about a quarter of the size of the average adult brain. So it's about a quarter of the size. However, incredibly, it doubles in size in the first year. So it goes from a quarter of the size of the brain to half the size of an adult brain from 0 to 1. It keeps growing to about 80% of the adult size by age 3, and it's nearly 90% or nearly full grown by the age of 5. And for you people who like numbers, the brain weight in adults is between 1.2 and 1.4 kilograms. No, pounds, not kilograms, pounds. Super, super interesting in there. Okay, let's go on to biological development of the brain, the higher order executive cognitive function. So that, if we're looking at, you've heard the frontal lobe developing. Basically, the prefrontal cortex is in the frontal lobe. It's actually physically in the front of the brain. And it takes 20 years to become fully functional. This is the part of the brain that controls all of these things on the slide: decision making, goal setting, controlling attention, cognitive flexibility, information processing, and managing risk-taking, problem-solving, judgment, emotional regulation. Okay, so this is a huge part of what we sort of feel is adult behavior, but kids who are 6, actually their prefrontal cortex is actually not developed, and it is not going to develop well into their 20s. Sorry, gentlemen, you guys are even later. It's like 25, 26, where your prefrontal cortex is completely developed. Ladies are develop a little bit earlier, 21, 22 kind of thing in there. That's why, sorry guys, that's why your insurance is more until you're over 25, because your prefrontal cortex is not completely there. So things like managing risk-taking, judgment, emotional regulation, not completely developed. So the insurance people are like, yeah, you guys have to pay more because you get in more accidents. And I found out that if you drive a red car and you're a man under 25, you pay the highest insurance of everybody. Just interesting tidbit for today. Okay, so let's talk about plasticity. Oh, so actually, sorry, going back to this whole prefrontal cortex. So if you are teaching upper elementary or junior high and you kind of go, why are you doing that? Why are you skateboarding on the pipe that is obviously dangerous? They actually don't know, because their prefrontal cortex is not developed, and they will come up with some other reason, but they don't actually have the capacity to say why they're doing it. So if you teach junior high, they're super fun, they're super funny, but they actually are legit when they say, I don't know. Okay, let's go on to the concept of plasticity in the brain. This is the brain's capacity for structural change as a result of experience. And experience stimulates those neurons to reach out and connect with other stimulated neurons. Okay, so researchers have found that in a group of lifelong violinists, the part of the brain that controls the hand movements involved in playing a string instrument were actually larger than the same part of the brain in non-musicians. So the actual brain can actually change shape, can actually grow depending on what you are doing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. That's just a term that you kind of need to know around brain development. And innate curiosity. Again, this is curiosity is obviously starts in the brain. And we have this innate curiosity, this innate drive to understand our surroundings. And so think about a 3-year-old in the why stage. Why are we going here? Why is this red? Why are the clouds moving? And you want to die after the 1,000th question. However, this is a really important thing to actually answer these questions because they have this innate curiosity. The brain is driving this because the brain is so curious about everything, and so it's looking for information. So try to answer all the 3-year-old questions, even though you might be losing your mind, because it's important for brain development. Okay, let's go on to, now this is an interesting one, and we're going to jump into this a little bit more on collaborate, but you guys will have to be looking at the technology and the effect on the brain. We don't actually know yet. You will be the cutting edge teachers of teaching the digital natives who have never known life without technology. So I want you to read this particular, it's very short, this particular article on what are the differing, and I want you, because there's pros and cons in this particular article, and then I want you to jot down what you've heard are the differing opinions out there on technology and brain biological development. If you want to read a few articles, if you're interested, go ahead, but just jot down for our collaborate sessions some negative and positives about technology and its effect on the brain, and then we're going to have a little bit of a discussion on that. Lots of times anything new is demonized, and so there's probably lots of negative stuff out there, but we also want there also are some positive things about technology. Okay, so I'm going to leave that for collaborate, but have a bit of a go with it. And again, this is a very 21st century issue that you will really be at the cutting edge of. Okay, if you're interested in this particular aspect of brain development, you can read these articles. These are not, you do not have to read these, but it's just kind of interesting to see what's out there. Okay, jumping into now biological development, or the physical, the whole. Now we're going to look at the whole body. So we looked at the brain, now we're going to look at the whole body development. So basically, and again, try to think of kids that you know in these ages. It kind of makes more sense when you actually can picture real life kids. So niece, nephew, your own kids, neighbors' kids, brother, sister, anything, any child in here. This will also help you to start to think about your assignment 1, where you're actually creating a child. So what are you actually, so if you wanted to create a child that was 10 years old, you might want to start to be going, oh, I need to incorporate these kind of physical aspects. Okay, so again, I'm not going to read this to you. I will let you just have a read through it. So I would actually just stop the video for like a minute or two and just have a read through, and then we'll continue on. And we're back. Hopefully you read through that. And now what we're going to do is on collaborate. From your readings, there are 2 readings. You're going to focus on the physical development, particularly of elementary age boys and girls. So we're going to have a bit of a go with what is happening biologically, physically, and potentially some brain stuff for elementary. So like kindergarten to grade 6. We're going to focus on that on that range in there. So specifically, again, be ready and collaborate to discuss physical development of elementary age children based on your rate. Wow, I just said that all. So I've given you the specific page numbers to look at. So focus on measures 30 and 31 near the end of the document in the desired results document, and then focus on page 62 in the excerpts from elect document, and be ready on our collaborate time to discuss what you found about the physical development of elementary age students. Okay, that's it for physical development. Looking forward to cognitive development in lesson 7. All right, take care.